Hi and welcome to a new video. I'm quite excited to make this video because I want to showcase how you can use the large language models that you can download locally on your machine to help you a little bit with data analysis and create data analytics expressions in Power BI. Yesterday, OpenAI, they have announced two open source models that they can be used under the Apache license, which are the GPT-OSS, the 120 billion parameters, and the 20 billion parameters. One of them tools that have been available for the last couple of years is called LM Studio or Language Model Studio, which allows running local LLMs on your machine. You can go to lmstudio.ai and then you can download the LM Studio depending on your operating system. I'm using Mac, so I'm downloading the Mac for M series or for Silicon processors. And then what I've done is, after I have installed it, it's going to open a window like that for yourselves. You can go to Discover and then you can download any model that you see fit. I have downloaded a wide variety of the models for the purpose of usage and experimentation, and then I've searched for the GPT-OSS, and there's a wide variety of the models. So I have chosen only the MLX, which is the architecture of the models that runs smoothly on Apple Silicon Macs. And then I have begun reading the sizes and trying to understand what is the size of the GGUF and the MLX. And the one which works best for me is the 6-bit version. So you would find a number of them users who have already quantized the GPT-OSS model from OpenAI, the 120 billion, into a wide variety of quantization versions. So I've clicked on one of them. There is one which is done by a user called Brian Sai. There's another one at the end which is called Nix Viridian. That's the one I've downloaded. There's no preference of one quantization over the other. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to download the largest one that can fit in my memory. And I've downloaded that one. That is a 95 gigabyte model. I have 128 gigabytes of unified memory, so that matches the 75% default memory allocated to the GPU on the Mac devices. And what I've done is I have started a new chat from here. You can start a new chat and then you can load the model that you see fit. As you can see, the memory consumption is 90 gigabytes out of 128. When you load the model itself, what I have done is that I have increased the context window to be 131,000 tokens, which is the maximum that is allowed under this MLX format on Mac. So the main problem that I'm facing is I have lots of them dashboards, and each and every single dashboard, it offers more or less a similar range of services to the clients. So I'm trying to create dashboards for various clients, and these dashboards, they follow the same philosophy in the metrics. So I need to create the measures over and over again, and the only change is it going to be in the names of the columns, and sometimes some tweaks need to be undertaken. So I have a number of the measures that I want to create. So what I've done to the model is that I have advised that I'm creating a dashboard. So I want to have the measures written in DAX. These are the measures: the rolling average, the spend so far, and the client's expenditure, the contractor expenditure, the difference between them, the rolling averages for 3, 6, and 9 months, whatever it is. That's going to be depending on your needs. And then I'm asking the LLM to write in DAX. And then I'm giving some information about the data model itself. I just have one humongous fact table which contains all the data, and then I want to create the measures for it. I definitely can create these measures manually. It's going to take me a bit of time because the list is extensive. I could have 20 or 30 measures that are going to be repeatable from one dashboard to the other, and then I would have to change the names of the columns accordingly. So it thought for about 13 seconds, and then it began writing the total spend of the contractor, and then it mixed it up with the client, which is not what I want. So it made one separate for the client, one separate for the contractor, and then the total spend is both of them, the client and the contractor. And then the total spend was the backbone of all of the measures. The rolling average for the 3 months, and as you can see, it's total spend, which is wrong. That's not what I want. And then the rolling average for 6 months using also the total spend. It makes sure that it's just taking the previous 6 months. The cumulative, the running total measures, that is correct because that is the running total for the contractor and the running total for the client. Also, the power of it is that it adds hints for how to maintain, and that's exactly what I want. I want to create the measures and also create documentation for these measures because I don't want to explain too much to the person who I'm I'm going to be handing that dashboard to. They can read the documentation itself, and they can read the measures, and then they can have a very thorough explanation for these measures to help them to understand. And then the latest month, that is for the contractor, and the latest month as well for the client. And again, the difference in measures, definitely it did a number of them differences. One is the contractor minus the client, and another one is the client minus the contractor. It tried to give me all of them alternatives that I could use, and then the client previous month spent. And then it gave some sort of how to use these in your report. So that is really strong. And again, that is completely local without any access to the internet. There's an option in LM Studio which shows you how many tokens per second. So in here, in the first prompt, the tokens per second were 53 tokens per second. That is even much faster than I can ever read. And then I gave it some further instructions that the contractor spend should be separate from the client spend, so amend accordingly. It thought for about 2.5 seconds, and then it redid again the stuff, so for the contractor and for the client, and it did the 3 months and 6 months for the contractor and the client, and then the rolling average for 6 months for the contractor and also the client. And that's going to give some sort of like a very detailed level of analysis for whoever's going to be using the Power BI report. And then the cumulative is still separate. That is going to be one for the contractor and one for the client. And the latest month, one for the contractor and also one for the client, and the differences. So it did everything again. I'm going to mainly use the contractor minus the client, latest month difference, and also the cumulative difference. So that is very strong. And at the very end, it gave a quick cheat sheet of what should happen. And then I gave it a final set of instructions saying that try to use the end of month formula as much as possible and make the measures as simple as possible to read and implement. And that's what it did, where it used the end of month in each and every single element that is related to the date. So the main thing here is that the measures are correct. They resemble what I have created already in different dashboards that I'm working on. But what's really interesting is that the local LLMs, the larger ones, I'm using a 95 gigabytes model, they can be your assistant in these matters, and they're going to be much faster than doing a classic copying and pasting between dashboards and then changing manually the names of the columns. And you can take this up a notch by creating documentation for the measures that you have created so that you can expedite the process of documentation of the dashboard as a whole. Especially that after everything in here, which is quite a lengthy chat, you will see at the very bottom here that I've just used 3.2% of the context window, which means that I've used barely 4,000 tokens, which is very minimal usage. And as you can see here, the speed is quite close to 44 tokens per second and 8 seconds to the first token. And I think this can open lots of doors with thoughts about how you can use these models to expedite your line of work in data analysis using these models, and then think about doing generative business intelligence, not just generative AI. So that is a very good step towards generative business intelligence. And the beauty of LM Studio is that it has a developer tab, and then you could choose whichever model you want and then start a local server. And then you can link this model through an internal API to whichever application you want, and then you can have your own ecosystem of AI agents working for your own benefit. And that's the beauty of LM Studio and the local AI models. And the very last thing that is worthy to share before we end this video is that out of 128 gigabytes of memory, I'm opening some bits and bobs as well and some applications on my machine, but about 106 gigabytes are used. I would say about 95 of them is dedicated to LM Studio. So that is worthy to note. And definitely you don't need to use this model. You can think about other models as well. Thanks a lot for watching. Hope you found this video useful and insightful. I've prepared a couple of them other videos about fine-tuning large language models and deploying them to OpenWeb UI. I'm going to be putting the links in the description below. You can also pay my website a visit at www.apcmasterypath.co.uk, where I provide multiple packages for the RSS APC candidates to support them throughout their RSCS journey. Also, I provide lots of insights about the RSS APC process, the different areas of competence, and how you can deploy AI within the construction industry. Do not forget to hit the like button and subscribe so that you get notified about our latest videos.